I myself am a UX designer, and so is my wife. And so one of the things that we really try to work on and focus on in Stack and other projects is just making sure that if we do add some privacy features to any coin or to whatever, that it's as seamless to use as possible. Obviously, some of the more difficult technologies, there's only so much you can optimize, but I want to make sure they're as optimized as possible because you're going to have a lot of people look at these features and it's big and scary and weird, and they're just they're just going to I'll look at this later, or I'm not going to mess with this, it's too scary, and that's really sad.
Hey everyone, I'm joined by the one and only Diego Salazar, or Rehrar. How's it going, man?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Doing fantastic. I was on Twitter, as one does a lot, or X, as it's called these days, and I can't really remember. I think I did some sort of a tweet, or there was some sort of a tweet out there about could multi-coin wallets that support extra privacy features or would be willing to, or something. And then some friend of mine, I can't remember who, I think it was one of the Bitcoin Cash people, maybe even Callisti, I don't remember, went and tagged Stack. I was like, oh, you should check this out. And I'm like, I'm usually up on a lot of the better multi-coin wallets out there, and I hadn't really heard of the Stack wallet. And so I'm like, oh, this is worth looking into. And then pretty soon it's, in my opinion, started to like rise above a lot of the competitors as far as that like really digital cash kind of use case. And so that's just kind of how I got interested in this. So yeah, before we get into the wallet too much, you want to just tell me about who you are, where you came from, what are you up to, and how you got to Stack?
Yeah. So as you said, my name is Diego Salazar. I go by Rehrar in the, I guess, crypto online community circles. I started out in crypto quite some time ago with Monero. I actually found Monero before I found Bitcoin in a strange, funky turn of events. So kind of started there and worked in Monero with the Monero people for a lot of years. Ran the Monero villages at DEF CON, those kinds of things. And eventually I pivoted to start my own thing, and so I own a little design, research, development, infrastructure firm called CypherStack. We're kind of, cowboys, bounty hunters, people for hire. We go from project to project. Whoever has any extra, has need for any extra arms in any of these areas, and the team I've assembled is super rock solid. We we have the best designers in the space, best developers in the space, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But going to different projects and helping them out and really focusing on a lot of the privacy projects, because I myself am a big privacy person, privacy fanatic. I really want to make sure that privacy solutions exist for people that may need them when they need them. As a first worlder myself, oftentimes the worst I have to deal with lack of privacy is targeted ads, which is kind of annoying. But I'm very lucky in that regard, right? There's people all over the world that lack of privacy means much worse. So I just want to help out in whatever way I can in ensuring that good digital tools exist for privacy, because privacy in the real world is one thing, online privacy is another thing entirely, as I'm sure you know. And it's just, it's things are difficult, not just because there's not a ton of the privacy tools, but a lot of them are really hard to use. I myself am a UX designer, and so is my wife. And so one of the things that we really try to work on and focus on in Stack and other projects is just making sure that if we do add some privacy features to any coin or to whatever, that it's as seamless to use as possible. Obviously, some of the more difficult technologies, there's only so much you can optimize, but I want to make sure they're as optimized as possible, because you're going to have a lot of people look at these features and it's big and scary and weird, and they're just going to, I'll look at this later, or I'm not going to mess with this, it's too scary. And that's really sad. I would rather not just the desperate who only look into this stuff because they absolutely need to be able to use this stuff, because oftentimes anonymity sets get larger and stuff the more people use it. So it's in
Hmm.
everybody's best interest that all this stuff is as easy to use as possible. Well, anyway, kind of taking a step forward, after working in the crypto space with CipherStack for a couple of years, I'm like, I kind of want to throw my own hat in the ring. I kind of want
Hmm.
to design our own stuff, because we do excellent work for other people. We design really beautiful things, and have helped create many cool privacy protocol projects. And I want to put my own hat out there and see what we can do. And one thing I personally had really been craving for is a really good open source multi-coin wallet. There
They're
is
very hard to come by.
yeah, they're very few and far between. There are a couple, Edge Wallet, Cake Wallet, Unstoppable. I have had issues with all of them. Not issues in terms that they lost me my funds, but things I would have done differently, or what have you. For example, Edge, really good guys, but they require a login. And I understand why they kind of went that direction. It's what people know. It helps,
Hmm.
bridge that gap there, but it's not what I want. I just want to be able to go in there and make a wallet, and go off to the races without having to think, where is this information being sent to, and all that kind of thing. And Cake Wallet's really good, but it only supports like 3 coins, and I have a few more than 3 coins that I think are worth having. And so I'm just okay. So pretty much I'm like,
Hmm.
if one of these things is going to exist, I'm going to have to make it, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the other multi-coin wallets in the space, Trust, Exodus, and stuff, they are closed source, which is one of the biggest issues. Or Trust Wallet is open core, obviously meaning the core of the wallet itself is open for other people to mess with, use, distribute, that kind of thing. But uh, the the implementation of the wallet itself is
Hmm.
closed source, and I don't really like that. And one last issue I had with these wallets is most of them tend to what I call portfolio wallets, where you
Yeah.
have one wallet per coin, and you can't really make more of them. It does a really good job of adding up all the totals and saying this is how much you have of all of your coins. And it's really for an investor kind of thing, just to see their portfolio, all their coins added up, and if it goes up and down kind of thing. And a portfolio use case is not a wallet use case. You can
Mm.
use it like a wallet. You can send and receive and stuff, but it's really not optimized for people who want to use cryptocurrency in the real world,
Absolutely.
as opposed to just like let it sit there. So all those things combined basically said, well, I guess it's time to roll up my sleeves and get to work. So um, I got my CipherStack people. I give them the rundown of what we're going to do, and I guess about 10 months ago now is when we. No, I guess about a year ago now is when we really started hunkering down and starting building this out, and um, learned a lot along the way. We're not perfect.
Hmm.
There's things I would do different, if I could go back and do it all again. But man, in this year, we have made such a stellar product from a UX
Hmm.
perspective, and the coins that we support and the features that we support for these coins. And it hasn't been easy. Money is really difficult to come by. Pretty much funding this whole thing out of pocket in terms of CipherStack revenues that
Hmm.
would usually go to me and my family. Still keeping some so we could stay alive is basically being funneled into working on Stack. And there are many things that people want or need that just don't exist. For example, paynims, BIP47 for Bitcoin, were written in Dart, and there wasn't really a library that we could use easily. So we made an entire BIP47 library and obviously open sourced it, so anyone can use it. And got it
Hmm.
audited by our internal cryptographer, and he looked it over and made the suggestions, and we made the tweaks. And uh, so we have to build a lot of things that just don't exist for these privacy features, because anything that does exist out there that we might be able to integrate, it's for those kind of big wallets. It's for those portfolio use cases. They don't
Yeah.
really care about integrating the privacy features. If they put in Bitcoin, it's send, receive, and that's pretty much it. They don't want to put any silent payments, paynims, Whirlpool, any of these kinds of things. They just, here's Bitcoin. You can use Bitcoin. So it's up to us.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's very there's I guess a lot to unpack in that whole thing, but um, the the standard wallets are products of some kind, right? And they're products for a use case. And I think a lot of people assume wallets are just how you use crypto or the standard wallets, but unfortunately, the way people use crypto typically is that they don't. They get it, and then that's it. And that's what the market wants, and that's what the wallets seem to cater to for the most part. And you have basically wallets as like portfolio kind of things. A lot of times with a bunch of bolt-on features that not necessarily anyone really wants, but that those things kind of fund the wallet because a portfolio wallet that doesn't really have that much of a use case. And so I did a brief presentation on exactly that thing on like wallet design at ZCon a few weeks ago, and Paul from Edge was in the audience, of course, and we kind of did a little back and forth on some of these recommendations, which kind of went against what Edge was doing, and at the end of the day, he said like, look, we're primarily a portfolio type wallet that is kind of like dipping its toes in the payment wallet kind of space. And so he kind of admitted that's like, yes, this for our purposes, everything works well, but for like the actual sending receiving kind of as money thing, our wallet can work for that too, but it's not optimized for that. And so that's one thing that I found out with that's the multi-coin wallet scourge, because in all my years of living on crypto, especially kind of these days, it's really hard to get by with just using one coin. However, the wallets that work the best are for just that one coin, for example. So like I use the Phoenix wallet, the Lightning wallet there. I use the Selene wallet for Bitcoin Cash. I use the official Dash wallet or whatever. I use like, I have a Samurai wallet too. Like there's all like the single coin ones are the ones that do what I want, but then I have to juggle a million wallets. And so having a multi-coin payment wallet that actually has all the features you want, but is still easy to use is kind of like the holy grail for people like me. And I guess I hope it becomes a holy grail for other people too.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a catch-22, right? Because if all the market has to offer is portfolio wallets, then people don't kind of even realize that crypto can be used for other things when they get into it. They just think, oh, this is what crypto for. You buy it and you park it, right? Whereas if the good, awesome tools to use do exist that kind of edge people towards, hey, you can actually use this for things. People are like, oh, that's interesting. I'd never really even considered that. So right now the market's not there, which we're really feeling, trust me. But also the tools aren't there, which we're trying to remedy. And somebody has to kind of take that first plunge, and it's not going to be society at large that kind of wakes up and realize you can use this for payments also. It's got to be somebody like us that kind of says, well, we're going to sacrifice a lot of short-term profit, but somebody's got to make these tools, right? Eventually, I do hope to make some money with Stack Wallet. We do have some we earn money by, similar to other wallets, we get commission if you use a third-party exchange, if you use the purchase option in the wallet. And I know not everyone's thrilled with that. Some people will never use it, and we're probably going to add an option here to just hide those features for people who don't want to, which, hurts our bottom line, but it's the way that it is, because we're not in any way profitable at the moment. But that's okay. CipherStack's doing well enough that we're able to kind of build this on my own dime and have fun with it. And there are portions like sorry to talk about money so much. This is just kind of a reality of making this kind of thing, right? There are times where I need to kind of pull the developers away and refill the coffers, so to speak. Focus on client stuff, focus on bounty stuff, pull in a bunch of money, so that way we can be like, okay, now we have enough money to keep working on Stack Wallet. So it can tend to be a little start-stop. I typically have at least 1 to 2 developers working on Stack pretty constantly. But it's not my whole team. In the times of feast and famine, in the times of feast where we have money that's come in from various sources, I'm like, okay, now everybody, let's go to Stack and let's do all these things, and all of a sudden you'll see 3, 4, 5 features pump out, all within the same 1-2 month period, and then we kind of slow down a little bit into a little bit of a trickle. Bug fixing, put out one feature or one small feature, or make sure something gets out just so we can keep some momentum going. It's hard, man, launching a product in this space. There's just so many scams out there that anything new, people are reserved, rightfully so. I'm not saying we should change this, But it does mean that when somebody like me comes out with good intentions, a good product, and things, we show it to people like, okay, well, what's the grift here, kind of thing. And yeah, you were about to say?
Yeah, well, just the grift has ruined a lot of things for people because um, e- pretty soon it's like every new approach of technology came with a new coin. Like, oh, we're gonna experiment with Mimblewimble. Now a bunch of Mimblewimble coins pop up, and then like, oh, zero knowledge proofs and stuff. Then Zcash pops up, and then it's just like people start to get a little allergic to like new feature equals new coin, and then on now it's a little bit of the opposite, where now anyone who is launches something just on Bitcoin, a service just for Bitcoin, I'm equally skeptical of because I'm just like, oh, you know, not to talk too much smack, but like Swan Bitcoin, it's just like, oh, it's like a shitty one coin Coinbase that virtue signals on Twitter a lot, and it's just like all that, like, why can't you compete in the regular market? So you have to like virtue signal to a specific group. But yeah, it does make things hard. People get skeptical about new things. I think the reason why they get skeptical about new things is because the profit model for all of the crypto industry largely is attract VC funding slash scam investors, kind of. So
Right.
actually generate users and real business is very like the very small percentage, I think, of a lot of crypto activity. It's growing all the time. But I think that once people kind of assume that a new product will make its money by getting users who are happy to pay for it, I
Right.
think that then you're going to see a turnaround in the attitudes.
Yeah, and it's tough, man. It's tough seeing other people launch coins and make millions, or do nonsense things and make millions, and we're over here scraping by. And there are days I'm like, what am I even doing, man? Like, I have the skills to make one of these fake products and just set myself up for life or something, but like that doesn't change the world, like that changes the pockets of the people who were on top, but like it doesn't change the world. And uh, the reason I stuck around with Monero and crypto in general is because I think it has potential to change the lives of some people. I say this a lot, but there's a really compassionate heart at the root of cryptocurrency, where we saw that there's a lot of people disenfranchised on the fringes that are suffering as a result of, choices that the government are making, choices that people are making on their behalf about what they can do with their money and how they can spend it. If can they take it out of their countries? How much can they take out of their countries? What if they need to flee the country because they're in danger? Well, they can only take XYZ stuff with them, right? What about people who move to a first world and try to send money back to their family in the third world? Like, I live close to the American-Mexican border, and remittance is a huge business where they charge gigantic fees because they know they can, and the people are desperate, right? And there's this compassionate heart at the root of cryptocurrency that says we can maybe improve on this. We can make a better, more just system in some regards for everybody, and that's why I'm here, and I want to contribute to that. And the grifters, and they're the opposite. They're trying to extract as much value as they can and head for the hills. And, in the end, you can't take any of that money with you when you die. So
Yeah, of course.
all you have left is,
It's
what you've
legacy.
contributed to the world. Yeah. And I want to be somebody that's contributed something.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. I'm probably one of the very few people who's been in crypto for over around 10 years now who doesn't have the coffers to show for it,
Yeah.
because I've focused on that kind of side of things too. Uh, but so well, we're trying to get stuff that makes a difference. Obviously, just a random multi-coin wallet that just does regular old send and receives, and that's it, is just kind of maybe pedestrian. But some of these special features are what really kind of, I guess excited me a little bit. So, first of all, I like just the ones I'm going to rattle off that I personally saw, and then obviously you could fill me in on all the rest of the good stuff.
Sure.
So I really liked the ability to choose your own node, and just on that, does that mean if you just run like a regular old daemon like Bitcoin D or something like that, you can kind of connect it to that, or is there some extra steps in that?
No, it's Electrum based, so it's got to be Electrum server. That's just the easiest thing right now. I do have plans to try to see about full node connections and things because I do absolutely agree. and that is a weakness right now. That's helped us get off the ground and make sure that we can get people spending and things moving. But
Mm-hmm.
I I do want I do really want kind of full node connections kind of thing. It's important to me as well as a person who also runs nodes.
Mm-hmm.
So that is on the list. Balancing features, choosing which features to focus on is always rough, but that's a little further down the road. Right now, we're trying to get things like Tor up and going because that's very important to me also, and I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
to a lot of privacy-focused people.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's so. I mean, still, like you're in. I did start up my own Electrum server the other day just to test it out. So
mhm.
it's not like it's on. It's not like it's unworkable. But so yeah,
Sure.
being able to select that kind of adds a lot of an extra layer of the ability to safeguard your privacy if you have
Hmm.
kind of that set up. And so I
Sure.
mean, Tor is obviously another good one. That's something that I did like that I believe the Unstoppable wallet also has in
Hmm.
it. But again, much more lean kind of from a feature standpoint sort of wallet, and not all our coins sync. And so I
Yeah,
got to figure
and
that out.
a lot of wallets kind of, I don't want to say they half-ass it, but like they
Mm-hmm.
go all the way in very specific areas when it comes to Tor. For example, iOS doesn't really allow background processes, meaning like
Mm-hmm.
once you exit an application or put it in the background, it stops all processes, which makes
Mm-hmm.
things like Orbot difficult, not impossible, but very, very difficult. So most people on mobile will, for Android, will use Orbot, and right now there is an Orbot for iOS, and it works reasonably well. You have to do some funky things like toggle on a VPN feature and what have you, but we're trying to put Tor baked into the wallet and have
Mm-hmm.
it work on Android, iOS. So you don't need to have a secondary application. You don't need to have, anything. It's just in there. It's built in there for anyone to toggle on from within the app. We think that's also really important from a UX perspective primarily because have again I'm trying to simplify privacy as much as possible. We want people to be able to just kind of tap the Tor section, press turn on Tor, and there you go, as opposed to okay, now we're going to need you to install this separate app and we're going to need you to go into your settings and toggle this VPN setting so this can work. And most people are going to be like, no, it's okay, I'm not going to do this,
Mm-hmm.
right? um, so and I really just don't like to take these kinds of shortcuts where it works on some stuff but not on other stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
it requires you to do XYZ to get it working. We've been working on Tor in this capacity for several months, and I know we were hoping to get it out sooner. Other people were hoping we were going to get it out sooner, but if we if it's not easy and nice to use and stuff, it just doesn't fit Stack, man. Like
Yeah, of course.
if it's not seamless, then it's just not something I want my name on. So anyway, continue. What
Yeah.
other things do you like?
Well, the one thing that's it's very rare in any wallets, any mobile wallets, especially, but especially, I don't think there's any other multi-coin wallet has it, is coin control. And I
Hmm.
remember a friend of mine specifically that was like his killer feature. He needed coin control because he had certain funds that in a wallet that I guess had been associated in some kind of a way with he like foolishly sent it through email or something like that, and so he just wanted to make sure that those were not ever touched, lock those up, and just use everything around it, and especially for anyone in the I guess the transparent UTXO coin space who
Hmm.
knows anything about how to use it privately, it's a lot of times you don't want to just trust whatever you know wallet selection, input selection thing the wallet automatically does after a coin join or whatever to do stuff. Sometimes you really want to do that. And to be honest, for me myself, a lot of times I like coin control for the opposite. I like it for transparency reasons to make sure that like if I receive this, and for accounting purposes, I'm like, I received this to this address. I'm only going to spend from this because this is specifically donated money, or this is a business thing that and I want, even though it's all coins in the wallet, I'd rather just not use those and only spend from the ones here for this purpose, the very specific earmarking thing. And so for people who do like real life, who live real life, I think that's a very important feature for
Hmm.
people, but almost no one seems to request it except for basically like me. So,
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I did add it for privacy reasons, because eventually we're going to be adding Whirlpool from Samurai, and you want
hmm
to be able to deal with your toxic change and all this kind of stuff. But it's had other side fringe benefits where all of a sudden the Litecoin ordinal community was like, oh, Stack Wallet's the only mobile wallet that uses coin control, so you can freeze your ordinals and not accidentally send them out to as miner fees and stuff, or so you just lose your stuff. So all of a sudden, completely out of nowhere, I found out about it when I woke up to like 50 Twitter notifications. You just got all these Litecoin people like, oh, we're using Stack Wallet now for ordinals.
Yeah.
um, and it's funny, right? Like you add these features that users want, and there are benefits to that. There are side benefits to that, but you just got to have the balls to add these features. Like, dude, nobody wants to add these kind of Bitcoin whirlpool things because they're like, we don't want that kind of reputation. We don't want we don't want to get kicked from the app stores or any of these things. And it's kind of really sad to see that all these people who claim to have these cypherpunk values and be in here for freedom and all these just not have the stones to kind of step it up when it really matters and put in the features that are really going to help people.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
yeah,
isn't the Samurai wallet in like the Play Store?
it is. Yeah, so it is
And
possible.
yeah, like
They're not
Cake
on
Wallet has
iOS.
iOS, doesn't it? So like Cake Wallet supports. There's plenty of Monero wallets in iOS.
Right.
There's plenty of shielded Zcash wallets in both. Like clearly having privacy features is still acceptable in App Store kind of environments. Not to say that that should be the litmus test of whether you include a feature or not. But if people are like, look, if it's not in these stores, we're not going to make any money. We might as well just not have a wallet at all.
Right.
Yes, you can still have those features in the store as of, middle of 2023.
Well, to be blunt, I mean, they self-censor because, as you said, it's all about the VC money. They want the potential VC investors to look into this and go like, "Ooh, but what is the government going to think about this privacy stuff? I don't know that I want to park my money here and have you guys, build this kind of thing." So, really, it's less about the users and more about attracting all the people that are going to be giving them more money, more millions, and that is one of the benefits of Stack Wallet being kind of my thing is that I get to decide, and not trying to attract outside venture capital comes with its benefits, but obviously comes with its drawbacks. But tons of fun, man. Like, I'm having a lot of fun working on this project. I'm having a lot of fun seeing people discover Stack Wallet and just kind of come back and go, wow, like I've been looking for this, or like, you guys have the best UX in the space, bar none. And it's validating to know that my team does good work and we do good work and we're making a small difference. And right now we're not drowning in users, but we're also still in open beta because I've got probably two biggish things I want to change and fix before we kind of fully exit open beta into production. Mostly swapping out the Monero library we have underneath for a upcoming Rust one that is being worked on by our friends over at Sarai. It's just more robust. The code is less brittle, more features, and much easier to maintain. Monero has been a nightmare across the board,
Yeah,
and it
definitely
currently
remember.
doesn't work. It currently doesn't work on our Windows desktop. I don't know if you know this, but Stack has desktop versions as
Oh,
well
interesting.
for Linux, Mac, and Windows.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be a big thing. I do know that I personally am I guess, 2/3 mobile, 1/3 desktop kind of a user. Whereas like the in-person money kind of transactions are all mobile. But then every once in a while you want to do something on the desktop, whether it's like I don't, maybe I just ended up being a weirdo, but I kind of got out of like the banking system back in like the 2016 era, where, and I kind of was always a little bit of a financial boomer in that way, in that I never got to like paying bills on a mobile device in the fiat world. And so like for me it's just like you go home and you do your accounting, and then when you're out in the street is just when you spend basic things. I got into that kind of mindset. But so having both definitely kind of helps, because yeah, there's definitely a there's definitely a
Yeah.
user case for both.
Yeah, and as a guy who runs a business, it feels good to sit down, and the desktop has more space to work with, and you can look at more information and freeze more. Like I try to get feature parity for everything on from mobile to desktop. And that's easier said than done in some areas, especially, desktops generally have more power and more space to work with. And I want to make sure that everything that you can do on the desktop, you can do on mobile. But, mobile is also much easier to use, and desktop people tend to go a little crazy. Oh, we've got more space to work with. Let's throw a bunch more information on there. And I mean, design, I've been really disappointed with the design in cryptocurrency space. I mean, obviously, open source as a whole has a reputation for less than stellar design, but
Potato.
I've actually found that crypto has the opposite problem in that because there's so many millions and millions of dollars, you have designers that are working very hard to justify their salary by adding a bunch of superfluous bloat all over the place, and you end up with over-designed, confusing, pretty-looking wallets that they actually end up being more confusing just because of how over-designed they are. So I've tried to strike this happy balance where we have all the info. I don't want to skimp on the places where information is necessary, like a transaction details screen. There's a lot of details there that is kind of confusing, a little bit scary, but it's needed there, right? Try to lay it out in a way that makes sense, that is chunked correctly, so it's just easily parsable by a human. But at the same time, I really try to. It's not minimalism, but trying to make sure that every element justifies its existence. If it's here, there needs to be a reason for it. And that's one of the big compliments that we continuously get is just Stack is so clean, it's just everything that you need and nothing more. So really proud of that part.
That's the big UX kind of challenges. There's one of the most frustrating things with simple, elegant designs is that I don't know where all my stuff is. Like, how do I get to this? How do I do that? It's just not apparent at all. But on the other hand, if it's all in front of you, it's a mess. And so the trick is to just leak out just enough information to the user to where they can kind of feel their way in the dark, and they only know as much as they need to at this juncture, but they could still find their way through. And that's always really tricky.
Yeah, that minimalism trend, I think, has really gone to the extreme where they'll be replacing word explanations with icons, which if it works and it's universally understood, that's totally great, right? But they'll try to be cute and cheeky with it for things that there's no convention for, and you've had to kind of tap around. And for me, I use I obviously eat my own dog food here. I use Stack pretty consistently. Whenever I'm like, what does this do? I immediately go to our developer chats. I'm like, guys, we need to change this. If I'm getting confused, everyone's getting confused. So happy with how it's turned out. There are still some things I want to change. There are some things I rushed a little too much to get a feature out. But overall, I'm really happy with where our design sits, and I think it's one of our strongest selling points. I've pretty much had... I mean, obviously, design can be a little subjective, and some people are like, oh, well, I prefer this one or that one or whatever, but... I've never had any complaints at present, so
it's so now let's talk about the privacy features specifically.
Sure.
So obviously connecting to your own node and then connecting over Tor is kind of huge because of the IP address leakage kind of thing. But as far as there is pretty much no unified privacy solution in crypto. Every major coin has their own approach to things. Some of them are bolt-on, some of them are protocol level. And first of all, has it been challenging, or how challenging, I should say, has it been to try to explore implementing all these different things where you can't really just copy-paste with a few lines of code change for different coins?
Yeah, no, it sucks, especially because how much this stuff has been actually looked at by competent people. What are the different threat models? How should we be presenting the security and privacy guarantees of each of these protocols? I don't want necessarily everyone going into each feature thinking they're going to be getting the same level of privacy from them. But so users need to be informed enough that they can decide which feature on which coin is good enough for them, right? Some people may have threat models that are not as strict, and so what's available to them is a wider variety of privacy tools, and some are not. It really, really helps that I me and my team are really on the bleeding edge, at the cusp of what's going on, kind of in crypto privacy land, in terms of what are the trade-offs, what are the existing solutions, what are the upcoming solutions, what are the what do they add, what do they not add, and yeah, the presentation of those things is very, not even talking about the code, but just from a UX perspective, the presentation of reasonably informing a user without being too scary what sorts of privacy they can expect from something like this, and after considerations, as like I mentioned before, Whirlpool has toxic change, so there's extra steps after you've gone through the privacy stuff, and that just, I mean, that sucks to use. Bitcoin sucks to use for privacy in a reasonable way, but
People like to do it.
yep. And my task is not to say, no, you guys should not do this. My task is to say, okay, this is what people have. I need to be able to communicate to them what sorts of privacy they can expect and make it as easy to use as I possibly can. And I've taken a lot of time to. I take this seriously because, you communicate something poorly and somebody uses your thing for something they think, somebody uses the feature thinking it will help them, and really it hurts them, and that would be my fault. I mean, obviously not necessarily legally liable, but
But there's a
morally so.
responsibility.
Yeah. If you're not willing, I don't know if you know the Chinese builder, Sexy Cyborg, really
Yeah,
cool
I know her.
person.
Well, I don't know her, but I follow her stuff on Twitter.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, same. And one thing she says, like, if you want, oh, I'm going to be paraphrasing this because I don't remember it exactly, but basically, if you want trivial responsibilities, take on trivial projects. You don't just get to throw something up there and say, oh, I did it, and reap all the social capital that comes from that if you're not willing to take some sort of moral responsibility for your work. And I take all of this seriously, and try to make sure in the selection of coins, in the selection of features, that I'm maximizing, particularly on the privacy front, because there's other people championing other efforts, and the effort I'm trying to champion is privacy, that people have options, because I certainly can't decide or see into the future which coin is going to be bigger and which coin is going to be smaller and which one is more in use and which one isn't. I just want to make sure that whichever coin is, or coins are being used, that there are privacy options available for them in an easy to use way, right? So with Bitcoin Cash, working on getting Cash Fusion in there, want Whirlpool for Bitcoin, and I'm certain this is annoying for people that are maximalists on any particular camp. They're like, well, why are you using resources? In fact, I've had this happen. Why are you using resources on these people? Why are you using resources on this thing? Why are you using? It's just delaying getting this out, or this other feature out, that for our coin, and I'm not here to take sides in the sense that I'm a privacy maximalist before I am a crypto person, kind of thing. So I'm not trying to join any particular camp. I just want to make sure that all these options exist. We want to get Mimblewimble extension blocks in for Litecoin. Want to get Whirlpool. Already have Paynims in for Bitcoin, Bit47, and been talking with you about Dash. Seeing about getting Dash on there, and Dash has a privacy protocol as well, and I just want there to be things. But you said Zcash's
Yeah.
wallets. Last I checked, which was admittedly quite some time ago, their mobile options for their new Halo 2 stuff weren't great. Has that been resolved in the past while?
So, I guess depending on whenever this thing comes out, there could be wildly different responses. But basically, there have been a lot of good mobile wallets out there for Zcash about a year ago. And then when the whole sandblasting attack thing, I don't know how much information that kind of got out to the general public, but basically someone did a spam attack type thing on the Zcash network, and then most wallets were used a specific SDK and were kind of bricked, and like not really bricked, but like from scratch you'd have to sync it overnight kind of thing, which practically is kind of a brick thing. And there's been just a lot of wallets that, like, some got discontinued, some were like on the old SDK and didn't work, some started a new SDK and started to like have either sync from a specific block height onward kind of thing to kind of skip over a lot of stuff, or they started doing things where they'd filter out certain transactions that seemed like they could be spam, because the spam ones were specifically, it wasn't a lot of transactions, it was just as many like outputs as possible transactions on purpose. So anything that looked like a spam blast kind of attack, they would just filter those out and you'd only see real transaction ones. So there's been a lot of that stuff going on. And right now, I believe the Electric Coin Company basically did a big restructuring. And one of the things they're focusing on now is like they're building their own mobile wallet and their own like mobile SDK to make things kind of work. So basically, I think that the picture on how to properly implement, Zcash shielded at the best level the picture is getting a lot clearer now. It's been a little bit of a disaster the last year with just everything happening.
Yeah. So as of time of recording, is that spam attack still ongoing?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Now it does still. That means those transactions are still on the network. So
Right.
it's not like the inability to process them. It's just that when you're syncing and going through all the stuff, it just
Sure.
slows syncing down.
Yeah. I mean, adding, as you probably know, adding just public Zcash wouldn't be too difficult for us. But
Yeah.
if I put something on there, I would want to be able to support those privacy features. Halo 2 is some pretty neat stuff, man.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if maybe putting Zcash public on there in the interim period is sufficient until they put out their SDKs for us to look at or whatever. But I also don't see it's all about the communication, right? I don't want people buying Zcash and then putting it on our wallet because they think it's going to be private, and then them sending in they're actually just using Bitcoin, just public Bitcoin, right? So it's a back and forth thing that I have with myself every once in a while. And there's no clear-cut answers. I'm just doing the best I can. I'm going to be making some mistakes along the way, and more than happy to hear feedback. I don't take any feedback personally. We're like, oh, I don't like this about the wallet. I'm like, how could you, right? Like, my work does not equal me, man. Like, I'm a pretty cool guy, and do my best. And if my wallet fails in some way, that doesn't mean I'm a bad person.
Yeah,
So,
of course. Well, that's the thing about
yeah.
the privacy thing in general is crypto users, for the most part, let alone not crypto users, know nothing about privacy. And like I remember my own personal journey in this, where I started using Bitcoin for a lot of transactions around 2013, and then a little after that, they came out with HD wallets, and then they kept on trying to get me to use different addresses. And at first, I got mad because I didn't understand. I was just like, I want to use this one. This is my favorite. Like, why do I have more addresses? And then, I mean, obviously, in retrospect, that's hilarious. But then most people, even today, like at the time of the Canadian trucker protests, still thought sending Bitcoin was anonymous. Like just the way you said it was just anonymous. And obviously the Bitcoin privacy problem is going to rear its ugly head at some point soon. But I think the EVM kind of world is in for a much ruder awakening. And for as big as it is, as mainstream as it is, I'm surprised that the privacy problems haven't presented themselves as problems yet, really. Where you just have one address, with the account-based model, you just have one address, and then everything you do is there, not just money, but like your NFTs, your smart contract, just all of that is just you put it into Etherscan. Good thing, I guess it's a good thing that Etherscan has such like an ugly and confusing UX, so then people can't determine that. But if someone made like a beautiful UX block explorer for Ethereum, and I think that it would start to get really, really nasty about just it's all out there. And I'm kind of wondering when the what do they call it, when the ball's going to drop on that, and then people are going to start waking up to this.
Yeah, it's a concern of mine that when people start pushing these transparent public blockchains without really understanding them, that really what we're doing is we're just opening up this huge silo of financial information for any eyes that want them, but particularly powerful eyes that want them. And It's scary, especially when you start thinking about using crypto for payments like you do, right? One of the primary benefits of something like cash is that it's pretty private. It's about as private
Hmm.
as you can get in the physical world. Yeah, there's serial numbers and stuff, but it's about as private as you can get in the physical world. And when people are starting to push kind of crypto as a new payments solution, we have regressed a long ways in regards to privacy for payments when we start using something like that. And we have really just turned it into another PayPal in that sense. From yes, it's more decentralized, but from an uh, everybody knows what or somebody that can easily disperse the information knows what you're doing. And it's actually a few
Hmm.
steps worse because everybody knows what you're
Yeah,
doing
everyone
because we have
can
to be
know. Yeah.
transparent, right? At the very least, PayPal stuff is not open to a stalker, right? If a stalker is trying to, hey, see my transactions, PayPal won't let them. Yes, the government can still subpoena them and get all the information, but at least for some people, it's not accessible. Whereas with crypto, that same stalker can be either themselves or hire a chain analysis firm or whatever. Stalkers will go through crazy lengths sometimes
Oh yeah.
to just see where your flow of funds are. Where are you? Oh, look, you sent it. You sent this transaction to a business that has an address associated in Wyoming. I know you're in Wyoming in this particular town now, right? Like, it's really scary. It's really scary how not just open digital payments has become and to prying eyes, but how the crypto people really should know better and don't.
Yeah,
And
because no one uses it.
yeah,
That's kind of my thing. I mean, it's kind of funny. One of my I do for I guess work. I do use TikTok, but also personally, and it's been kind of on the one hand fascinating to see what information TikTok gathers about me from a just seeing how it behaves, like from that mindset. Like, oh, I'm geographically located next to my wife, I get different content from when I'm not. And I'm like, oh, interesting. They figure that out. But also, there's one TikTok user in particular, Not Can Jr., who literally what she does, she doxes people. Like some random person in the comments says, I bet you can never guess my name or birth date. And then she just goes in and just finds their like live, puts a video out, consensual doxing, right? Finds out who they are, where they live, what their full legal name and birth date is. And it's just from without any extra tools, just from like social media posts and just bit light Googling. And it's pretty incredible to see. It's why I like that sort of mainstream privacy education kind of thing. It's like for people like us, maybe it's like we already knew that, but for the average person to know that, it is pretty kind of it's very telling how much of people's data is kind of leaking. And I don't think that we're ever going to honestly push the world to be completely privacy conscious, but I do
sure.
think that we can either save some people or kind of save big categories of things where the average stalker or petty government is not going to be able to tell most people's financial transactions. They're going to have to do like targeted surveillance to figure out
Yeah.
certain people. And it's like, well, can you save those people too? Like maybe, but for the most part, if the government or other thieves or corporations or whatever, they should have to work for their spying. They should just be on default. They're just vacuuming everything up.
Right. And that's kind of a big fear of mine is just this idea that um, there's all this passive data collected that you could weaponize against anyone at any time if you're in a position of power. And just like you said, kind of vacuuming everything, and now you have everything. And then I realize I don't really like you because of XYZ reason. I can just go through all the data that I have. Oh, here's something that I could probably use, right? And this really it just allows the powers that be. It hinders the democratic process because all of a sudden you can weaponize data that against very particular individuals and not against others. You help your friends, you hurt your enemies, kind of thing. And um, privacy is it needs to be available. Like you said, we're not going to save everyone, but when a person realizes they need privacy, there needs to be stuff there. And this is in a technological perspective, but it's also in a social perspective because, a lot of this comes from the open source community, read the fucking manual type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there does need to be an element of personal responsibility where you shouldn't expect someone unpaid to hold your hand through the entire process 24/7. But with good UX, that hand holding may not be necessary for one, and for two, there kind of needs to be a social open arms in the privacy community to say like, yeah, like come be one of us. We realize that you have a need now, and I think privacy people tend to get a bit bitter and disgruntled because nobody cares about privacy. I know I've been there before, where I
Yeah.
put all this work in this privacy stuff, and like I get a lot of cheers from a very small crowd, and everyone else doesn't care at all. And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, am I really changing anything here? But it comforts me to think that there may be a person in a third world country with a totalitarian government that needs privacy, and they happen upon something that I've made, and
Mm-hmm.
it's there for them, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, I may not see right in front of my eyes what's happened, but it's there.
Yeah, and I've seen enough. Like, I know that this is worth it. I know that there's enough things that we see happening. Like, there's a friend of mine who had to flee Mexico for fear of his life, and I got him a plane ticket with crypto, so it was not like traced or anything like that. And then he used a lot of, kind of those privacy techniques to make sure he stayed alive, as far as how to hide his identity, how to do things like that, and all the same stuff that we do is like a fun little hobby or like a nerdy obsession that's like it actually
Right.
works. And then I'm friends with Naomi Brockwell, and something interesting has happened since she's sort of branched out her channel into a second channel of just like short form privacy tips, like 1 minute long things. And that has really taken off. She could kind of become a little bit TikTok famous in the ultimate twist of irony, right? But her audience is mostly like younger women. And it's just like it's not the cypherpunk nerd demographic, but there is a thirst for this kind of knowledge for people who just you would call like the most like the Barbie girl, kind of like the least typical kind of audience thing. There's a lot of people like, oh, you mean I should use a VPN? You mean I shouldn't say this? You mean I should this and that? And then actually kind of do an action on that. And I honestly think that a high level, maybe not nowhere near a perfect level, but a high level of privacy improvement is very achievable in our lifetimes. In the next 5 to 10 years, I think it should not be that infeasible to have everyone using an encrypted messenger like Signal, everyone using some kind of a VPN or just some basic, maybe not like hardcore over Tor, blah, 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 but just some basic obfuscation tool. Everyone who uses crypto just use like some basic shielded type zero knowledge thing with their IP address, like automatic, like the wallet just automatically runs it over Tor or something so that it doesn't get connected, and then that's it. And maybe they're dum-dums with everything else, posting about what they bought and how much for on Twitter, whatever.
Right.
But as long as I think if it's doable, because I use Signal and I use crypto apps, and I understand that we're close to being able to get that oh, I'm just doing a PayPal style kind of experience, but also have encrypted transactions and IP obfuscation. I think that on by default, I think that should be very achievable.
Yeah, and I really like how you phrased it. Improvements in our lifetime. The goal is not to solve the privacy problem. First of all, it's unsolvable. It's a cat and mouse thing. The adversaries are always improving, so we need to always be improving. But there's something to be said that oftentimes it does get discouraging because you make something and nobody cares, or because you're just like, well, yes, this solves this little area, but there's this big gigantic gaping hole of privacy leakage still that is unsolved. And we got to be content with the improvements. We got to be content sometimes with moving forward in some capacity. And if what we've made today is just a stepping stone for the shoulders on which other people can stand on tomorrow to make bigger and better things, then we've played a part, and that's kind of what's important. So, I mean, altogether, I'm a little anxious of the fact that Stack has taken a pretty hardcore privacy stance, because Samurai gets to posture around because they've got some big lawyers behind them, and that they talk about pretty constantly, and that they're willing to. I'm not saying they were completely well off before and stuff, but they've done well for themselves. So they've got some funds to defend themselves. Stack is a little teeny tiny wallet that is taking a scary stance in regards to society, and so there's some anxiety there. But
Yeah.
overall, it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, and also overall, it's a small target. Being small means small
Yeah.
target. Being big means a bigger
That's the
target.
hope.
But also, I mean, every single the innovation, in my opinion, is a good user experience and multi-coin with this, because every component has already been trailblazed by someone else. There's already tons
Yeah.
of Monero and Zcash wallets. There's already Samurai. There's no Mimblewimble mobile wallets that I know of, but there's already, CoinJoin stuff. There's Cash Fusion stuff. There was, the Dash Electrum wallet doesn't work super well, but that did have like mixing on mobile and all this stuff. It's just, it's all out there. And, I mean, what's the worst that can happen, honestly, is probably an iOS delisting, or
Sure.
maybe even a Play Store, but that's really unrealistic. And, I mean, if Samurai can somehow manage to stay in the Play Store, and I think that I think he'll be
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, and it's actually very interesting because, like you said, other people have already done all this work. Now it's just a matter of, and it's not a simple matter. There's still quite a bit of work, but of gathering these technologies and putting them kind of into the same place, which is it's kind of shocking to me. It hasn't been done yet. It makes sense. Samurai's like, yeah, we're Bitcoin only. We're gonna stay Bitcoin only. Monero people are like, yeah, we're Monero people, and this is Monero only. Everyone wants people to use their stuff because it heightens the likelihood that they're gonna kind of go all in on this one coin, right? So we're Monero only because if you use Monero, yep, number go up, right? And not only is that delusional and unrealistic, because in this day and age, the amount of people that will be converted to Maxiism on any particular coin is going to be pretty small. It'll still happen. I'm not saying the chances is zero, but now crypto is an ecosystem and it's a whole
Yeah.
thing. And if you're not on Ethereum, you're doing it wrong. And if you're not on this, you're doing it wrong, right? But it is a thing where the tools don't exist, where somebody has gathered all this stuff and put it under the same roof, which is kind of what Stack is trying to do. We're, like I said, we got a laundry list of Litecoin has something, Bitcoin Cash has something, Dash has something, Zcash has something, Monero has something, Bitcoin has a lot of things, and we want them all there. We want privacy people to say, oh, you want privacy? You should use this. You should use Stack.
Yeah.
And you want UX? You should use Stack. You want to be able to spend? You should use Stack. It comes at the cost of things like portfolio stuff. Like we currently don't have the ability to add up all of your coins and display how much you have in your entire portfolio, but that's because we support multiple wallets. You can make 10 Monero wallets in Stack. You can make 10 of any wallet in Stack, and just syncing all of those, and well, it's all a big thing.
Yeah. Well, at least this is something where when people ask I should get a crypto, but what crypto wallet do you recommend? I hate that question because I'm probably going to have to say Edge. And no offense to Edge, but I'm not happy with that answer. And because it's more of a portfolio management thing, it's a little clunky in some ways, but it works enough. It's like I'd rather say, they said, hey, what's the best Lightning wallet? Instantly, I could tell them Phoenix. It's like, what's the best Dash wallet? Great. Or I'd like to be able to have that same feeling of confidence when just saying, what's the best crypto wallet?
Yeah. What are some things that stop you from saying it's Stack? I know we've got a long way to go. We've only been around a year, but we want to build towards that. We want people to be able to answer confidently. We're not there yet, but we want to be. So from your opinion, what do we do better? What can we do better?
Well, this might be a fun live UX and feature brainstorm thing. Not live, but you know what I'm saying. That then it'd be fun to go back to in a year and see where that ended up, and to see and maybe review and be like, how many of these suggestions were completely stupid. But one thing that I like is the speed to transaction thing, which I mentioned to everyone, and I actually do like the stopwatch and like how long it takes to get to the transaction thing. And while doing that with the Edge wall, I actually figure out there's a new feature in Edge that's hidden, where as soon as you get to the main screen, you swipe a coin right or left to instant scan or receive. And I'm like, oh, that cuts down so many steps for the people who know it, but it's still kind of hidden. There's something that I actually learned about, oddly enough, from the Nighthawk wallet developer for Zcash, that as far as I know, the only crypto wallet that does it right now is the official Dash one, where if you press and hold on the app icon, there will be a scan QR code option pops up. You just hit that and you just scan. You don't even have to open the wallet to start scanning to pay. And so ever since I figured that out, now my time to when I have my phone unlocked to get to a payment is 2 seconds. And I mean, I think that's great, especially because when you see people use, the fiat stuff, they just hold the button on their phone and then their Google or Apple Pay thing comes up and they tap. That's what we're competing with. And that might be 1 second. But we can get 2 seconds, I think, is good. So that's the number one thing, is a way to just, skip right to the scan. And then, of course, you have to hit your PIN to actually do or whatever you got to actually do the payment. That's one thing I really like. The other one, I mean, I'm a heavy Dash and Zcash user. I'm just waiting for those to be in there, and then that'll be pretty heavy. Trying to think of what else. The other thing, which it's something I've become a lot more, I guess, I wouldn't say maxi is not the right word, but like a lot more into lately, has been the Thorchain ecosystem. Thorchain and Maya. Maya is a fork of Thorchain that give that old school shapeshift experience of just you click an asset, swap it for another one, but in a completely, like, in a decentralized way, running an actual DEX rather than a centralized company to do this. And the cool thing about that is, to a certain extent, you can do a pay any with any kind of thing, where it's super easy to, all you have to do is, if you, let's say you have a Litecoin, you have Litecoin, but you need to pay a Bitcoin invoice. You could, all you got is Litecoin. You could send it in one transaction where it just adds some op return stuff to the transaction. You send the Litecoin into the Bitcoin. The op return says, swap for Bitcoin to this address and the final receiving address, where you just send it into the Thorchain Bitcoin pool, or into the Litecoin pool, and then it comes out Bitcoin on the other end to the specified address. So then, and that's super easy to kind of implement and really kind of adds traffic. And then I do know that some of these Thorchain and Maya Protocol front ends do take a small commission off of trades and stuff too. So it's just like another great thing to have, like, in wallet, to where you could offer native staking or yield for any native asset without having to do wrapping and stuff. You can offer swapping, and you can offer send to any and then receive to any. Receive to any is harder for single coin wallets because you have to build in that kind of handling for the other asset. But it'd be great to be like, all I want is Bitcoin, and they're like, well, all I got is Litecoin. Send me Litecoin, and you just get Bitcoin, and you don't have to trust a company. So that kind of stuff is stuff that I think is really, really important.
Okay, interesting. Does anybody do any of the other open source ones utilize Thorchain? Edge?
Yeah, Edge does. I know Edge does. I don't know if Unstoppable does. I don't honestly know which ones are entirely open source either, but it should be pretty easy to implement. It's in a whole lot of them.
It's just us four: Edge, Cake, Stack, and Unstoppable.
Yeah,
that's all there is.
Yeah, Edge uses I forget what it's called, but the SDK from ThorSwap, which is probably one of the more popular Thorchain interfaces for this stuff. But you can kind of do your own thing, and I'm pretty close with the Maya team, and the Maya team is like, they're a fork of Thorchain to basically support different assets and do some things a little differently. But the coolest thing about that is, at some point, they're trying to work on a way to do pass-through data where you could swap an asset from Maya to Thorchain, and with just one transaction, to where, like, for example, Litecoin's only supported on Thorchain, Dash is only supported on Maya. If I want to swap Dash to Litecoin, I do Dash to Rune, which is the Thorchain native asset, and then Rune to Litecoin on so one on Maya and then one on Thorchain, but with a
Sure.
memo that tells you can do it all in one go. So you can just do one thing, and trustlessly does that.
Interesting. Yeah,
What?
you take advantage of different liquidity pools. Yeah.
Yeah, when that happens, that's when it starts to get really cool. When you start to everything, all the magic starts to come together a little bit, and yeah, those are probably the biggest things. Other than, of course, the already stated kind of like privacy goal stuff. I'd like
Yeah.
to have every coin have a privacy usage, because people are going to send me other coins. I'm going to get paid in other coins. They're going to, some services will only accept one or the other. I'll have to swap at some point. And it just sucks if I'm trying to maximize my privacy and then I have to like not have any privacy when I want to do this one specific thing. And so just all those privacy things. One thing that I'm particularly interested in is just is how you're going to have a good UX with any of the coin joins, because I have a lot of ideas about that, but admittedly it's a bigger challenge than the other stuff.
So we have already spent so many hours in the design room building out, kind of whirlpool type things. We have made, I think, good progress, and even our non-finished designs, I say this a lot, but are probably top of the line in the space, in my opinion. I'm not happy with them yet because I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Right? I feel there are areas of optimization still. So I'm not going to be releasing these out yet. But I think what we've come up with is a pretty rock solid foundation. I think people are going to be quite impressed with how simple these things are going to be to use. I mean, like another thing we want to get in there is multi-sig, another UX nightmare in terms of you got to send this to this guy and this guy and this guy, and then they got to send to it. Everybody's got to have everybody's stuff. That's also just absolutely horrendous. But if you just work on easy stuff all the time and never challenge yourself, man, like that's no fun, right? Like you gotta tackle the hard stuff. You gotta take the hard challenges and do it. And so that's fun. That's fun. But I think I hope to impress you. I hope to impress, and I'm happy to hear your ideas and your feedback. Just hit me up and like, hey, so this is what I'm thinking in terms of how to simplify this kind of stuff. But I think what we have is really going to make people excited, and if we do our job right, we will be the front runner in terms of if you want an easy to use coin join experience, use Stack, at least until other people take our designs and put it in their stuff, which they can do because everything is open source. The code is open source. The designs are CC by 4.0. So if everyone takes what we do and puts it in their thing and stuff, great, more power to them. That just means that we made the best thing in the world, and everyone has to have a piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain level, it might be a cool thing to say that you power the privacy technology in every dedicated coins wallet, because I mean, we're talking about potatoes, right? Potato UX and stuff. I have not had a good coin join experience. I've had okay ones in like a full node wallet that like, all that kind of stuff. It's okay. But like I had, if everyone in like Litecoin hypes Mimblewimble so much, as far as I know, almost no one's using it, or it's only through the Litecoin core wallet. And so, for example, if every Litecoin wallet starts to like have Mimblewimble because they came from the Stack source, and every like I know there's the Selena wallet's an up and coming Bitcoin Cash wallet that they're gonna do Cash Fusion or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, where are they gonna get their implementation? Are they gonna have to build it from scratch also, or are they gonna, So if it's just like that fountain where everyone comes, at the end of the day though, like the thing about open source, I mean, Bitcoin's open source. It's been copied so many times. It's been improved upon, in my opinion, a lot of times. But there's a reason it's still number one, which is just, first of all, everyone started using it and they just don't want to switch. But also, a lot of people trust it as the source of innovation, sort of.
Yeah, there's a pedigree. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, for example, if Stack has all the best privacy with a good UX, even if someone else takes it afterwards, it's an evolutionary process, and people are always going to be. First of all, everyone starts using Stack before someone's like, I want some of their customers, and I want to copy the code over here. But then at the next wave is, okay, well then the new one, like, why not just keep using Stack, because all the other new stuff that comes out is going to be the best there first, and then we'll see where else it goes.
That's the hope.
It's a good vision for the future. All right, shill the wallet and where to go and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, go to stackwallet.com. We do have another version called Stack Duo that is just Bitcoin and Monero for those of you who want just those two coins. But Stack Wallet is, all the other ones that we do. We are on every social media imaginable because I just went on a binge one day and signed up for them all. Hive Social, Post.news, all the ones you've never heard of, we're there.
Yeah.
But yes, you
I
can
have heard of
find
Hive
us on,
Social at least.
you can find us on TikTok. You can find us on X, Twitter thing. You can find us, on Mastodon as well. And a link to most of our socials, but not all of them. I got to update the website. Is on stackwallet.com. We're on the Google Play Store. We're on F-Droid. If you go to fdroid.stackwallet.com, you'll see the instructions to add the repo. We are on iOS. We do have Windows, Mac, and Linux builds as well, which you can find on our GitHub in the releases section. I tweet about them constantly. So just go to our latest release tweet thing, and you can find the link to where those are. The desktop ones are in alpha, but they are currently working with very few bugs, so probably going to be bumping them up to beta within the near future. And a lot of cool stuff in store, guys. A lot of cool stuff. Cache Fusion is probably 60-70% the way there already. Tor coming very, very, very soon. And just tons and tons and tons of features are in the pipeline with no signs of slowing down or stopping. So give us a look, give us a download, give us feedback wherever you may be. Happy to listen. We've got Telegram, Matrix rooms, Discord room. I've been told to sign up for what's the open source Discord? The
I can't even keep track.
Yeah, there's so many. But I'll be making one of those. It's fun. So yeah, that's the Stack Shill. Give us a try. You'll be impressed. I promise you. We do excellent work.
All right. Well, thanks very much for being on. Have a good one.
Yeah, of course. You too, man. Thank you very much for having me.